So, as I'm sure you've all seen, when Donald Trump was giving his State of the Union speech and he got done talking, Nancy Pelosi stood up and in a swift act of defiance, she ripped up his speech. Wow. So brave. So brave. Let me just show you the clip real quick of her doing that. Wow, there she goes. Amazing. So inspiring. You go, Queen. Now, there's actually a video of her practicing it. Like, she was ripping the papers up before Donald Trump was done to make it easier on herself. So the whole thing was planned. And let's just talk about this in real terms here, man. What does this accomplish? Absolutely nothing. It's just a media spectacle. It's a fake act of revolution, of protest. That's what it is, man. Because when you look at Nancy Pelosi, she always enables Trump. She gives him everything he wants, whether we're talking about the money for the border, whether we're talking about the military budget, the thing that Warren voted for, where they actually allocated more funds than the Trump administration had even requested in the first place. Everything that is anti-progressive, she just signs off on it. Everything that Trump requests, she signs off on it. So what kind of protests, what kind of revolution, what kind of movement is she leading against Donald Trump exactly? Why doesn't she oppose him when it comes down to actual tangible difference on the ground, on actual policy? You know why? Because there is no such thing as a Democratic Party or a Republican Party. It's the establishment. Okay? That's what it is, man. At the end of the day, they all play on the same team. Make no mistake. And this spectacle here where you had all these clowns on the mainstream media and even on Twitter, by the way, with this Yes Queen hashtag saying that she's so brave and admirable for standing up to Donald Trump. No, she doesn't stand up to him. She is his biggest enabler. She is the one who approves everything he wants and gives him whatever he needs. And the fact that she took so long to even impeach him tells you that too, right? And even after the impeachment, she doesn't send the articles of impeachment to the Senate so she can bog down Bernie Sanders, when he's supposed to be campaigning in Iowa. I mean, the whole thing is shady as hell, man. Okay? Donald Trump should have been impeached within the first year of his term, not 3 years late. So she is mounting absolutely no kind of resistance whatsoever. And if you think Nancy Pelosi is on your side, if you think that Nancy Pelosi is on the side of the people, oh boy, I mean, I got news for you. It's so funny. I keep remembering when she says that, I have a picket sign. I have a poster for Medicare for All that's been in my basement for 30 years. Yeah, and apparently it stayed there because when it comes to progressive policies, she's never on board. She's nowhere to be found. But when Donald Trump wants money, when Donald Trump wants to impose racist policies, when Donald Trump wants to bomb brown people, she's always on board. And I mean, this is nothing new, right? If you look at her behavior in the George Bush administration, she didn't prosecute George Bush for war crimes. She didn't prosecute him for illegal torture programs. No. She's always there. Good old Nancy, always on board. So, I mean, this is just ridiculous for anyone who has just even a basic grasp of what's really going on in the political establishment. You really know that this is just a joke. Also, when she agreed not long ago to extend the Patriot Act, I mean, all of these abysmal policies and the economic sanctions as well. She's always on board, no matter what Trump wants. Now, and the tax cuts for the rich. I mean, you can't keep up. You just can't keep up, man. There's so much. There's really so much. And Jimmy Dore, actually, he went on Tucker Carlson and he absolutely demolished her. And I was quite surprised. Like, when I saw Jimmy Dore was on Tucker Carlson, I was like, all right, this could be good. Let's take a look. So yeah, he did a great job at dismantling her. And I really want to show you the whole clip. It's a bit long. It's about 6 minutes, but I think it's worth watching. So let's take a look at that.
We still don't have the full numbers from the Iowa caucus, but the results so far, the ones we've been given, indicate a narrow lead for Pete Buttigieg, who was once a mayor of a minor city in the Midwest. A big win for the little mayor? Not so fast. Buttigieg's campaign had close financial ties to Shadow. That's a tech company that completely screwed up the results on Monday. And then this, today, Iowa Democrats were caught, apparently mistakenly, giving hundreds of Bernie Sanders votes to total non-entities like Tom Steyer and Deval Patrick. You add it it all up, and you begin to wonder, are people trying to stop Bernie? A lot of Bernie supporters think they are. Wouldn't be a surprise, actually. Democratic insiders in the press have made it clear they'll do almost anything to deny Sanders the nomination. Jimmy Dore is one of the very rare independent thinkers on the internet, one of the last left. He's got a podcast. He's a comedian. We're happy to have him join us tonight. Jimmy, thanks so much for coming on.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I'm not a conspiracy guy. I don't think I'm paranoid, but just looking at the accumulation of facts, which grows larger every day, I'm starting to think there's a real effort, not in public, but behind the scenes, to prevent Bernie Sanders from getting the nomination by the Democratic establishment. Am I imagining that?
You are not imagining that. No, you know what, Tucker, when I look at what's happening in the Democratic primary, and especially what just is happening right now in Iowa, what I think is not only is democracy alive, but it's thriving.
Yeah, well, that's a good point.
No, this is really, of course, this is the DNC, right? By the way, they took over the counting of the votes. Did you know that they took over the counting of the votes? The DNC came in. Apparently, they don't have anybody who knows how to count stuff in Iowa, so they have to have the DNC come in. I don't know if you know, the DNC rigged the last primary against Bernie Sanders. Yeah, so those are the same people who, and by the way, the same people who rigged the primary against Bernie last time are the ones involved in making this app, right? So they got a bunch of people who worked on Hillary's campaign that work now at Shadow, and they helped build this app. And all of a sudden, and you know, here's the thing, Tucker, and you know, I've seen Glenn Greenwald make this point before, is that if these were honest mistakes, you would expect some of the mistakes to go in Bernie's favor and some of the mistakes to go in the DNC's favor. But all the mistakes are always going in the establishment's favor. So that's how you know these aren't mistakes. This isn't. And by the way, when they release those 62% of the vote, they're going to release those results. How did they decide to stop at 62%? Where's the transparency? Why did they pick those counties? There's no transparency. This is obviously, how are they going to cheat Bernie? This is how they do it, because if you know what the headline was all day yesterday and today on cable news, on CNN and MSNBC, is Pete Buttigieg is in the lead. He's retaining his lead. And that's the story they want everybody to know. And that's what half the country now thinks, is that Pete Buttigieg won Iowa.
But so there's so many levels of irony here. But I'm just picking this out of our head. Here's one. Some of the same people who are regurgitating this propaganda, who are counting the votes in Iowa, are the same ones who spent the last 3 years telling us that Russia was subverting our democracy and that the sanctity of elections was the most important thing in American life. Are you noticing this?
I am noticing that. Apparently, Russians work for Shadow, and they run the Iowa Democratic Party, apparently, because, so yeah, of course, you know, I was one of the few shows that debunked Russiagate and saw through that, and, you know, that's this is all kind of tied together, because Russiagate is a result of the failure of the Democratic Party to present a platform that gets people who want to vote Democrat off the couch to vote for them. So they can't actually offer them anything because they're beholden to their donors. The same people who control the Republican Party control the Democratic Party. We don't really have two parties, right? So they have to do Russiagate and impeachment and all these these circuit shows, right, to distract you from the fact that the Democratic Party doesn't represent workers anymore, that they actually represent big pharma, health insurance, the military-industrial complex, and Wall Street. And that's why all this is happening, and that's why they have to cheat Bernie Sanders, because he's going to upset their game, their money game, and that's why they got to stop him before. The first job of the Democratic Party is to stop the candidate who represents the workers, and then and only then can they turn their attention towards Donald Trump.
So is that why we never have debates about the tax code? We spend a lot of time on bathrooms. We spend a lot of time on these kind of peripheral social issues. But I can't remember the last time someone talked about carried interest. Can you?
Tucker, as Nancy Pelosi is ripping up Donald Trump's speech, she's passing his legislative agenda. So, and also, if you watched closely last night, you got to see her applaud Donald Trump's imperialism when it comes vis-a-vis of Venezuela, right? So, and I know you did good work on Venezuela. We all know these foreign entanglements are just CIA plots to steal resources and give it to American corporations. They admitted so much. John Bolton admitted on Fox News that that's what Venezuela was. So you saw the one-party rule last night. You saw Nancy Pelosi applauding and getting up with Juan Guaido, who is a CIA-appointed puppet leader of the Venezuela. So you saw that's the part I like to call out. That's when they're both in bed with the intelligence community. They're both in bed with the military-industrial complex. And so, yeah, you're right. We're not talking about real things.
No.
We're talking about Russia. We're talking about a phone to the Ukraine. We're never going to talk about why when the Democrats had complete control of the government, they gave us a right-wing health care plan anyway. Oh, maybe it's because there aren't really two parties. There's one party in America, and they're both controlled by big business.
Jimmy Dore, you're going to take so much abuse for doing this show, but I hope you'll come back. Too few independent thinkers in this world. Thank you.
Okay, my pleasure.
Man, I really got to laugh at how much Tucker Carlson is enjoying this. It's so weird. Like, I don't know, man. I really love Jimmy Dore, and I really respect him. I was watching him even in the last election. That's how long I've been watching Jimmy. So I absolutely love him. And he raised like a gazillion good points in this video. I mean, everything, right? We're talking about Iowa. We're talking about the Shadow app, about Hillary's people working, like all this stuff that I've talked about too in the last video where I told you how Pete Buttigieg rigged this whole caucus in Iowa. And then he's also exposing the establishment for what it is. It's a one-party system. The Democrats and the Republicans only serving their donors, the same people at the top, always. You know, one thing that he also brought up is Nancy Pelosi welcoming Juan Guaido, you know, this fake puppet leader of Venezuela that they were trying to install now over there. You know, CIA business as usual in Latin American countries. Where's the surprise? So he exposed Nancy Pelosi for what she is. She is Donald Trump's enabler. And, you know, it's really interesting when you get nuggets of truth like this. I mean, not nuggets. It was 6 minutes of Strack, one point after the other, you know, bombshells of truth. When you see that on mainstream media, because you don't get that a lot. And I think, I don't know if that was just coincidence, but, you know, when Jimmy Dore was finally hitting the nail on the hammer, like with all of it right at the end, that it's all about, you know, the oil, it's all about the big interests, he cut him off. I don't know if they had to let him go, if it's just a coincidence, but, you know, that was just interesting. And yeah, every once in a while, you get someone like Jimmy Dore who comes on mainstream media and just like rattles off the whole truth and nothing but the truth, man. I mean, he was on fire, you know. I can assure you, like, I don't even need to check. I can guarantee you that you have some concerned trolls on Facebook, on Twitter and Facebook, maybe, up in arms about how, oh my God, how dare Jimmy Dore go on a right-wing show? How dare he go on Tucker Carlson's show? What difference does that make? He could go on anyone's show as long as he's speaking the truth. It makes no difference whether he's on MSNBC, which, I mean, you maybe consider a left-wing news outlet, but which is actually just as right-wing as the rest of them. They all serve the same agenda, okay? That's all it is, man. They're just a little bit less racist on MSNBC and CNN. That's the only difference, okay? They just pretend to be okay with minorities on those channels and in the Democratic Party. But at the end of the day, they have no problem implementing policies that actually hurt minorities, as we've seen before, which is the same argument, the same false outrage that they tried to use against Bernie Sanders when he held a town hall on Fox News and, you know, Elizabeth Warren refused to go to there. No, this is stupid. You should go on any platform you can to speak the truth. It doesn't matter if it's Fox News or MSNBC. So, you know, they will use that against anyone, whether it's Jimmy Dore or it's Bernie or anyone they want. It's always this fake outrage. Instead of actually addressing the concrete arguments, the points that are being made. No. They just fake outrage, concern trolling. That's it. And that actually hurts the progressive movement. I mean, I don't know what you think that accomplishes, but it accomplishes nothing. That was really good from Jimmy Dore. And, you know, this whole thing with Nancy Pelosi about her resisting and opposing Trump is such a joke. I mean, it really disgusts me. And it's really frightening that you have so many people buying into that. Like, they're really brainwashed by it. Like, oh my God, yes, queen, you go, girl, ripping up his speech. What difference does that make when she signs all of the agenda that Donald Trump puts on her table? What difference does that make when she is on board with George Bush? I mean, it's really mind-boggling how people can support her and think that she is some kind of progressive figure right at the forefront of any Democratic agenda, and I have no words. So that was really good stuff by Jimmy Dore. And once again, don't fall for the Democratic Party's shenanigans. At the end of the day, they're all on the same team.